The last few weeks I've been seeing advertisements for Harbor Freight greenhouses for under $50. The link goes to somewhere that isn't Harbor Freight. I don't know if they're legit or not, but it reminded me I've had this Harbor Freight greenhouse for probably around 10 years now. I thought I should do a review video on it. We'll do a quick walk around, I'll show you how it's held up. Then we'll go inside, I'll show you what it's done for me. In the last few years I have noticed the panels are starting to discolor. I don't know how much of that is degradation and how much of that is just they're dirty. This vent is bowed up for some reason. That's on the vent panel. If I took it apart, I could probably figure out why it's doing that and fix it. I just haven't done it yet. This corner's starting to break up a little, but we'll get into that shortly when we look at the other side. The strength of the whole thing, I think it's good enough. I've had up to 16 inches of snow on it without a problem. On the other side, the biggest problem I've had, I see after 10 years, this corner is breaking. This corner's messed up, but to the credit of the Harbor Freight greenhouse and to those who designed and built it, it may not be entirely their fault. You see, sometimes when I see there's going to be a soaking rain in the forecast, I will take those panels off and let the rain give it a good watering inside. There may have been a few times where I put the panels back on because we were going to have some cold nights coming up, but I didn't put the clips back in them that hold them in place. Because they're a little bit of a pain. This thing wasn't designed for those to come off often the way I do it. That's just my own weird way of doing things. But during that time when they were sitting there without clips, there may have been a big wind that came up and those panels may have took off flying through the air and tumbled and crashed and rolled around, which could be a contributing factor to why some of the corners are messed up. It's also possible that may have happened more than once. With that in mind, I'm going to cut the Harbor Freight greenhouse some slack for having a few messed up corners on the panels. Then there was the other incident. When I got the greenhouse, looked at the instructions, it said, first build a foundation for it. Well, I bought the greenhouse just spur of the moment. It was on sale, looked like a really good price for what it was. I wasn't really thinking about foundation, but of course it's going to need a foundation. But I brought it out here looking forward to setting it up without putting much thought into foundation. I didn't want to deal with that at the moment, so I just set the thing up, put it here, and thought it's light, it's easy to move. I'll put the foundation in after I figure out how I want to do it and go get the materials to do it with. Well, before I got around to doing that, it was a windy day. I was over there, I was doing something in the garden, I was looking away from it. A gust of wind came up and I looked up just at the right time, and here was that greenhouse flying through the air toward me. Actually, maybe not flying through the air, more of a rolling on the ground type of flying thing. Fortunately, it's not very heavy. I braced myself and caught it. Then I brought it back here and put it where it's at. I think the point of that story is it's durable enough to do a rolling, flying thing through the air without being damaged. I think the only tragedy of that incident is nobody got it on video. Let's go inside. I'll show you what I have going on in here. I have had some problems with the door. A couple of the rollers fell off, had to put them back on. Sometimes the door gets stuck. That's usually because something's in the track. Key there is to keep the track clean. This is what we have going on in here. It's just a dirt floor. I plant directly into the ground. I planted all of this in the fall. It's mostly brassicas that I grow for greens, also a few other greens. I plant them all very thick. About the middle of January, they were starting to crowd themselves out. As they do that, I thin them out, use the ones I pull up for baby greens. By thinning, I'm able to start harvesting in the middle of January. It's worked out well the last couple of years because we've had unusually sunny weather in January. Right now, it's producing more salads than I know what to do with. Have some mustard greens, turnip greens that are starting to bolt. I think they're turnip greens. Arugula, kale, I don't know what the variety is. more mustard. I don't remember how you pronounce that. Menuza, something like that. I really like it. It's mild flavored and very productive. It's starting to bolt too. I just pick those off, put them in the salad. It's like miniature broccoli. Southern Giant mustard. It's a stronger, more spicy flavor. Massive amounts of cilantro that just came up as weeds. It seeded itself from last year, but it's trying to take over. A little bit of lettuce that's done the same thing. Came up by itself. Kale and mustard. Everything's growing up so thick because I just can't keep up with it. A little bit of red Russian kale that just isn't keeping up with everything else. I have greens planted outside too, but around the middle of November they just stop growing, or stop growing very much. It's the middle of March now, they're just starting to grow. But in here, since about the middle of January, I have been able to enjoy a big green salad for my first course for dinner almost every night. This has been supplying me with most of my vegetables. It looks like a big weed patch, but it's a weed patch of things that are good to eat. One thing I'm not a big fan of is how the vent latches latch. They work, but they're kind of a pain. Missing a nut here, the bolt. Actually, it slid down here. Some of the nuts are coming loose. That's not a big deal. 10 years later, come back and tighten things up a little bit. The wasps like building nests in here. I just leave them alone. They're not aggressive and they eat a lot of bugs. But we have a little bit of an unspoken arrangement. As long as they don't sting me, I'll leave them alone. So far, it's worked out well. I don't know if I mentioned the size of this. This one is a 6x8. Yeah, 6x8. The one I saw advertised for under $50, that one I think was 8x12. A lot bigger than this one. I don't know if that was legit or if there's some shenanigans going on there. If it's for real, maybe I should buy another one. Right after the greenhouse tumbling through the air incident, I decided I better very quickly put a foundation under it. I think it was that afternoon I decided I'm just going to do something temporary with what I have. I ended up burying these logs in the ground, just nailed it to that, thinking that would hold it temporarily. It's just one of the many temporary things out here that became permanent. I think it's going to need some attention soon though. What's the conclusion? I like it. It served me well. I'm sure there are better greenhouses out there, but for the price, it's more than paid for itself in food production. I don't know how much longer the panels will last. I'm guessing I'll get a few more years out of them at least. But that's all I can think of. Thanks for watching.